Okay. So the voice is there. That's great. If someone is there in the chat section, please confirm if I'm audible. So we'll wait for like 20-30 seconds and then we'll start this session. Let's more people gather around, and please everyone, if you are joining the session, please try to, yeah, thanks Vartika. If you are joining the session, please like the stream. That will be great help. Okay, so let me start this. A very good evening to all. This is Sunya, yes, and we are just going to start a test discussion on history and culture, and this is part of Manthan 2023 series. Okay, now, so let's begin the discussion for today. And before moving forward, let me tell you one thing and then we will do this. And the important part is, let me just tell you this. This is actually something very important. This test which we are going to discuss today is basically what took place yesterday. And this is part of our ongoing series on Manthan 2023. This is the initiative of Sunya, yes, and with the intention of helping you guys, helping all the civil service aspirants for their preliminary examination of 2023. Okay, now this is a 42 test series which is going to help you and prepare you for the test series, for the final test that will be conducted by UPSC. Now, the compartmentalization of this test series has been done so that you will be covering all the topic in the most proper and definitive manner. Okay, so there are 3 NCERT revision tests. Okay, and then there will be 13 subject-wise advanced tests. You can see it's written on the screen. There will be 10 GS full mock tests, making sure that not only you know the stuff, but you get the gist of how it's going to happen. In the examination hall, you shouldn't feel like, okay, fine, this is something I'm not prepared to do. That will not happen once you'll have done at least 10 GS full test, mock test. Okay, to make sure that you have enough information about the current affairs, you are fully prepared on the current ground also. There are 6 current affair tests, and then a lot of problems have been faced by students in past 2-3 years because of CSAT. We have meeting many students who are saying that GS paper 1 is done, easy, not so difficult. It's all difficulties are coming on the CSAT side. Okay, so that we will make sure that that problem will be resolved after attempting these 10 CSATs paper. Now all these tests will be taking place in a progressive manner. That means that over the period of time, the quality of questions will improve or will be more difficult, I must say. And that will prepare you in a progressive manner, so you won't be deterred in the first test paper. Okay, but by the last test paper, you will feel that improvement will be there automatically. So make sure, if you haven't joined the test series, go on the Sunya IS website and enroll yourself and try attempting the papers. Okay, start doing that as soon as possible. Okay, so voice is clear, or there is some problem? Okay, fine, let's move forward. Let's start with the questions directly. The test which happened yesterday, we'll start from there. Okay, so let me start with the first question. Which of the following statement is correct with respect to the application of the subsidiary alliance? And I'll read the question first of all properly. The company offered to help a friendly Indian state with its troop to fight anywhere the state might be engaged in. Point number 2. The company promised that it would be recruit, train and maintain a fixed number of soldiers under the British officers. When the state failed to pay the protection fee in time, it was asked to cede certain parts of its territories to the company in lieu of payment. Okay? So, understand this, that this problem is kind of simple, but there's a trick. Now, if you see the first statement itself, okay, first statement, it says that the company offered to help a friendly Indian state with its troop to fight any war the state might be engaged in. Now always remember, the British are not so courteous towards the Indian princely states. They are not gonna provide them carte blanche that any war you are fighting anywhere, the Britishers will be available for you. So first of all, some basics of subsidiary alliance. That subsidiary alliance was for the first time signed in 1798 between the British East India Company and Hyderabad. The second state was Mysore. These are some basic stuff which are expected of you that you will be knowing. This any war thing is wrong, because suppose you don't know anything, and I'll make a diagram to make you explain this thing. Suppose this was Hyderabad. It's here was Hyderabad, okay, and here was Marathas, okay, and suppose Hyderabad had signed a treaty in 1798 and Marathas signed a treaty in parts and parcel, different federation. By 1818, all the Marathas had either subsumed into the British Empire or they had an understanding through subsidiary alliance. Now understand this, that suppose if there was a crisis between Hyderabad, Nizam of Hyderabad, and the ruler of Nagpur, and both had British East India Company's native army stationed at their capital, will the British government or the British East India Company allow each of the princely state to attack each other? No, they will not, because ultimately that will impact the British East India Company's native army. So the first statement is wrong. Okay, many people get confused in this, but the first one is wrong. The company promised that it would recruit, train and maintain a fixed number of soldiers under the British officers. That is true. And when state failed to pay protection fee in time, it was asked to cede certain parts of its territory to the company in lieu of the payment. And that used to happen very often. Actually, that in the 18th century and in the starting of the 19th century, that becomes one of the easiest way for the British East India Company to take over Indian territories. It was one of the very famous example of this is, if you know about the place Gorakhpur, that was in Awadh Suba, okay, and it was taken using this methodology only by the Nawab of Awadh in 1801. Okay, that is not something very detailed you have to know, but you all can know by example that these things used to happen. So option 2 and 3 are correct. Option 2 and 3 is B, and that's why option B is correct. Okay, let's move forward. Yeah, bilkul. Archie is saying, Archie, that's true, that permission of Britishers was needed. The Britishers had a East India Company's council, okay, that was famously called as the Calcutta Council, that used to make final decision that even in subsidiary lines where they can fight and where they can't. Okay, so let's move to the second question then. I hope everyone got it by now. With reference to the Harappan civilization, now this one is from the ancient section, and this is how it's going to be in the examination, people. Okay, it will be all clubbed together. One, there will be a modern history question, and then next might be from ancient, then it might be an art and culture question. It will be all mixed up, clubbed up. So the question second is, with reference to the Harappan civilization, which of the following are the correct features of its cities and architecture? Now, the people used to use standardized burnt mud bricks as building material. The houses had private wells and bathrooms. The big temples were built in between the cities, and the cities had a rectangular grid pattern of layout. Anyone, any ideas? Anyone, any ideas? Okay, Vartika is saying C option is correct. Yep, actually C is correct. Yeah, look, first of all, burnt bricks was the main essential feature of Harappan civilization. Okay, even the Western archaeologists considered the Harappan civilization to be the most developed amongst its counterparts of that time, Mesopotamia and Egypt, because of the use of burnt bricks, and that's why burnt bricks is very important, and first one is correct. Now the houses had private wells and bathroom. This one is also correct. It have been found, it has been asserted. The third thing, the big temples. So first of all, one needs to know that there were no temples found anywhere in the Harappan civilization. There have been cases of statues of goddess, okay, and that the goddess of fertility goddess have been found in the, not in the citadel, in the outside, where in a way you can say the poor people used to live. Okay, but big temples were nowhere found in the cities of Harappan civilization. So option 3 is wrong, and only option, if you just reject option 3, if you don't even know about option 4 or anything else, there's only one option that will give you the correct thing, that is option C. Okay, yeah. Shragvi, the whole idea about that they were secular and all, you can't say some things like that, because the concept of secularism is pretty new one, and what their practices were, how they used to amalgamate religion with culture, we don't really have much of idea about that. Okay, so let's move forward to the third question. With reference to the Bhakti literature, consider the following statements. Now this is again interesting. Look, first question was modern, second was ancient, and this is from the medieval Indian history. Now the Devaram composed by Alvars is the first 7 volume of Tirumurai. The Nalayara Divya Prabandham composed by Nayanas is one of the major anthologies. And the third point is, it represents that Bhakti movement literature represents the religious literature of Pallava period. Now, one of the very big problem of students is students always what they do, they forget to give more emphasis on what was happening in South India. Now, people, this is something which UPSC also know. Okay, so make sure that your emphasis should be balanced. I'm not saying that focus just too much on the southern side or focus too much on the northern side. It has to be balanced. Okay. Now, in the third thing, first of all, understand that Bhakti literature consider represent the religious literature of Pallava period. Yeah, you can say that. Okay, so Pallavas was someone who came to power in southern India after the demise or after the decline of Satvahana rulers. Okay, so 3rd century BC they started growing, and they were there by until 1897 CE. AD. Okay, so if they were there around till 1897 AD, Pallavas were there till this time. That means that there must be people who are practicing Bhakti cult or Bhakti faith by that time in their territory. So that is third option is correct. When it comes to Devaram composed by Alvars and Nalaya Divyam Prabandham composed by Nayanas, what actually has been done is they have just switched the options. Okay, they have switched the options, and basically Alvars are the people who followed the idea of Vishnu. Okay, they were the followers of God Vishnu. Nayanas were the ones who followed Shiv, okay, or Shiva. And then you need to know that Nayanas is something. Nayanas were the group who wrote about Devaram, and that was a part first seven volumes of Tirumurai. That is correct. And the second part, okay, and the second part, that is Nala Divya Prabandhan composed by Alvars, is the option. Okay, now this much is clear. Let's move forward then. Okay, till the third thing is clear, that C option is the correct option here. Now let's move forward to the fourth question, and that is, consider the following statement. Okay, Yep, Aditi, you are right. The options were replaced. Now we have come to the fourth question, that is, consider the following statements about the Satya Sodhak Samaj. Satya Sodhak Samaj, I expect it's the period of the 19th century, okay, that the whole thing of modern Indian Renaissance thing. So Satya Sodhak Samaj was an organization established by Jyotirao Phule. So that was the founder thing. So that is actually point one is correct. It worked for women education. That's also correct. That's considered one of the basic feature of Phule couple, both Jyotirao Phule and his wife Savitribai Phule. They combinedly together worked a lot for women education and women emancipation. Okay. The third option, it advocated the approach of Vedic culture, Upanishad, and the predominance of Aryan society. Now this is something which is wrong, people. Understand this point. Jyotirao Phule belonged to oppressed community. Okay, those who need to know this thing, he actually belonged to the Mali community, which was then considered a oppressed community. And when he was working with the for emancipation of women, he was also talking about the caste oppression present in the 19th century. Now, because of this thing, one need to understand that he advocated the approach of Vedic culture is totally wrong. He actually opposed the approach of Vedic culture. He criticized it outrightly. There are certain writings of Jyotirao Phule that I can assure you will not be acceptable to even the 21st century society. Okay, he even wrote a very famous book called as Gulamgiri, where he compared the situation of Indian scheduled caste or oppressed class people, because the conceptualization of scheduled caste hasn't arrived back then. So the Indian oppressed class, he compared them to the African people, African Americans who were in America before 1865 and they were slaves. Okay, so the third option is wrong, and if you remove the third option, you will get only the option A. That is the correct answer. Okay. Yeah, let's move forward. With reference to the Kabir, and that is Kabir Das, a 15th century poet and a mystic, consider the following statement. Now this is something which will happen a lot in the examination, that not only Kabir is mentioned, a few more details about him is given in the question itself, that he was a 15th century poet and mystic. Okay, that has been established already. Now they have asking further and building on it, that salvation cannot be attained by search for the knowledge, rather results from the complete surrender of oneself. Did Kabir said that? No. Kabir is someone who was talking, he was a part of the Bhakti movement, and he was someone who was talking about love for supreme being free from rituals and priestlyhood. Okay, don't follow the commands given by priests and those who follow the rituals. Okay, you have to have faith in the supreme being. That was the basic idea of Kabir. Okay, he actually explained about that how supreme spiritualism can be attained, deep knowledge can be attained by every individual's personal experience. Okay, what he talked about? He talked about every individual's personal experience. Okay, so salvation cannot be attained by search for knowledge. This statement is wrong. Okay, Kabir was critical of social discrimination but maintained that caste system was useful for division of labor in the society. That is also wrong. He outrightly had discussed and criticized the social discrimination on caste lines, okay, and also on economic lines. Okay, he criticized the existing social order and called for Hindu-Muslim unity. Yeah, that is also true. Okay, this is famous for Kabir, that he was born in a Muslim family and then he was started preaching and became a part of the Hindu movement. Okay, so the option D is correct. Okay. Yep, that's correct, Aditi. Avinash, more people can try and give answers. Okay, that's totally okay. That's acceptable. Please try to write answer in the chat box. Meanwhile, I'm giving explanation. That's totally acceptable. Now, the sixth question, with reference to the social life during Delhi's Sultanate, consider the following statements. Now, first of all, I want you guys to have a basic idea that whenever you are reading a question, few things should start coming to your mind. That is, whenever the question says, okay, Delhi Sultanate, you should immediately get, okay, fine, the question is asking about the period when Kutubuddin Aibak came. It is like starting of the 13th century. Something like that should click in your mind immediately. Then you can proceed from there. Now, the first statement says, and this is they are asking about the social life, and this is again something which is very important, and I'll take a minute to explain this here. That look, questions will not be focused on the achievement of the rulers of any time, either the ancient, medieval or modern. Questions in the coming days will be focusing more and more on one and only thing, that is the social life, cultural life, the administrative issues of those time. Okay, so focus on those things more. Okay, so okay, fine, Delhi Sultanate, and the first thing about the society of Delhi Sultanate, they are saying, the first statement, traditional caste system with the Brahmins on the upper strata was subsided due to influence of dominance of Islam. Okay, the practice of sati reduced during this period. And the third statement, the Parda system that was introduced by the Arabs and the Turks became widespread among the upper caste Hindu women. So the statement number 1 actually is wrong. Why it is wrong? Because these foreigner rulers made sure that the initial days of their rule, they didn't disturb the caste pattern or the social structure in India. So in the initial phase you will not see that any changes happened. Okay, for the first time, I'll just give you some extra information here. For the first time, jizya was imposed on the Brahmins in the times of the Tughlaq. Okay, so you have to be very clear that when you are talking about the initial phase or the most of the phase of Delhi Sultanate, the social structure was not very much touched. When it comes to the practice of satis also, it was a Hindu practice, Hindu customs, and the ruling elite was Muslim, so they didn't involve too much into that issue also. Although the Parda system, which is totally correct, that was brought in by Arabs and Turks, very soon it became widespread and was although still it was only among the upper caste women who accepted it. Because look, economically also it was not possible, okay, for the people from the oppressed classes to opt for Parda system, okay, because most of the time they the females of the oppressed classes were also involved in the economic system of the state. So for them to follow Parda system and continue with their work was impossible. So it was a more, Parda system itself was a more of a luxury kind of a thing, and those who had the economic resources could only afford to maintain their women in that fashion, and that was done by the people of upper caste. Okay, so the option 3 is correct and rest 1 and 2 are wrong. So option D is the final solution. Okay, I hope everyone understood. Okay, consider the following places: Chandanagar, Machilipatnam, Kasim Bazar and Karaikal. Now these are the names of places on the Indian coastline where in the modern times factories were established by the European powers. Okay, now Chandanagar was the place in Bengal, okay, and it was a French colony and it was a French factory initially, and French got the permission to establish a factory here in the Mughal time itself, and they controlled it till 1948. Okay, Chandanagar. So that option, consider the following: which of the one for French trading centers? So option A is correct. Machilipatnam, that is also correct in a way, because in 1673 Machilipatnam was actually under the territory of Bijapur, and the then Bijapur's governor of Valikondapuram, his name was Sher Khan Lodhi, he gave the authority to the French company to establish a factory in here. Although this factory was later on removed by the Treaty of Paris, but you need to know that this factory was there. Kasim Bazar was very in Bengal only. It was very close to Murshidabad, which was Murshidabad, Murshidapur. Okay, that was erstwhile capital of Bengal Nizamat. Okay, so in Kasim Bazar there were factories of all the British or European companies. That is, British also had a factory there, French also has a factory there, and Dutch also had a factory there. Okay, so French had a factory, so option 3 is also correct. Karaikal, again Karaikal also the place they had a factory, and Karaikal basically right now is in Tamil Nadu, and Karaikal even now is part of the Union Territory of Pondicherry. Okay, so that was also handled by French as a factory. Okay, so all the 4 are correct. The answer here is D. Okay, Aditi is saying 3 is incorrect and C is correct. I don't know, Aditi, which question you are talking about. Kasim Bazar, people, you need to understand that Kasim Bazar, usually what people think, because Kasim Bazar is a lot discussed during Battle of Palasi, and Kasim Bazar has a very famous factory of the Britishers, but it doesn't mean that it didn't have factory of any other European company. You need to understand that these were small cities, okay, or small townships where small plots were given to all the European companies to establish their factory. So it was very much possible that there in a single place there was a French factory also, Dutch factory also, and the British factory also. It was only very late, it was only in the 19th century when the Britishers started monopolizing the things that rest of the European factories has to leave. So Qasim Bazaar had a French factory also. Okay, that's totally fine, Aditi, that's totally fine. Okay, now consider the following statement. This is again something which is art and culture as well as mixture of ancient, and focus on this a lot because I find a lot of student, sir, it was the question was asking for incorrect option and I mentioned the correct one. Don't ever do that, read the question very properly. Okay, a lot of people face this problem. Okay, so the question says talks about Khajuraho temple. I hope everyone knows about Khajuraho. Okay, so Khajuraho, Madhya Pradesh, Chandel dynasty, okay, built it. The question itself, the first statement said that Khajuraho temple was patronized by Pallava dynasty. Now, they were not patronized by Pallav, they were patronized by Chandel dynasty. Chandel rulers were the one who built and provided patronization to the Khajuraho temple. Now, Khajuraho temple is not a single temple. There were more than 80 temples in that whole region. Okay, and they were basically Hindu temples as well as Jain temples. Out of that more than 80 temples, right now also there are more than 25 temples still standing. And Khajuraho are also famous for their erotic designs and murals outside the walls. Okay, the temple is in Panchayatan style of architecture and this statement is wrong. Okay, so if you see that about this question, which of them, no, its temple is in Panchayatan style of architecture, so that is correct, because Panchayatan style, for those who don't know, you just make a square, people, okay, and then you get a center. So this is the temple of the main deity, okay, and then there are 4 smaller temples on the 4 sides, and these are the followers, or they are also goddesses, they are also deities, but they are not the main deity of that place. Okay, so in total there are 5 temples. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5, and therefore that's why Panch word is used. Okay, Panch signifies 5. Okay, so this temple is in Panchayatan style of architecture. That's fine, that's correct. Khajuraho temple was patronized by the Pallava dynasty. This is wrong. This is wrong, and the question mentions about we have to mark incorrect answer. So which of them is incorrect? Only the A. Fine. Yep, Aditi, that's correct. Okay, let's move forward. Consider the following statements about the land revenue system under the British rule in India. Now this is something which is very interesting. A lot of students find it very difficult, a lot of time, okay, to remember that which area, what kind of land settlement was implemented by the Britishers. Okay, if you want to understand it, and try to read that when the year in which what kind of system was evolved or implemented by the Britishers, and look into it that at that time which areas, which territories was newly acquired by the Britishers. Okay, so now after giving you that hint, let's come to the discussion, and I'll first go through all the topic, and meanwhile you can mark your answer in the chat box. Okay, so revenue was fixed for the Mahal as per the crop production assessment under the Mahalwadi system. Okay, in the Rayatwari system, the amount was fixed at 10/11th proportion of the revenue for the Zamindar. Landlords or the zamindars were given hereditary rights of succession of the land under the zamindari system. Now, the first thing, that is, we have to mark the correct answer. The first thing says the revenue was fixed for the mahal, and mahal is a word which is used, which is equivalent to a village in the Mughal times. Okay, in the Mughal times, the hierarchy goes like the states were equivalent to the subas, the commissionerate which we now have were equivalent to the sarkar, and then came the pargana, which you can compare to districts, and then came the mahal, which were equivalent to the village. So revenue was fixed for the whole mahal, that is for the whole village, as per the crop production assessment under the Mahalwadi system. This statement is right. There is no issue with this statement. Now, in the Rayatwari system, the amount was fixed at 10/11th proportion of the revenue for the zamindars. Now, this is totally wrong, and even suppose you don't know, because first of all they have mixed two different they have mixed the points, the regulation of zamindari and raiyatwari together. So that itself is wrong. But suppose you don't know this point, still just read this statement once and you will say that they have fixed 10th by 11th proportion of the revenue for the zamindar. Do you imagine that the Britishers are going to let the local zamindar keep more than 90% of the wealth collected? No, they will not. So that itself tells you that option 2 is wrong. But anyway, the whole thing was, in actuality, let me tell you, in the zamindari system it was decided that whatever the local zamindar collects, 1 by 11th of that he can keep for his own logistical support and whatever he was doing on ground, and rest 10 by 11th of the portion he has to submit to the British authorities. Okay, so second option is wrong because of this, because they have mixed up two things and in a very bad manner also. Okay, the third one, landlord or zamindars were given hereditary rights of succession of land under the zamindari system, and that is actually right, because this is the very reason why it was called as permanent settlement. Okay, permanent settlement. So the local zamindars were actually turned into the proprietor of the land, okay, on which they were given the zamindari. So option 3 is right. So overall, if you'll see, the answer is, where the pointer is, the answer is 9th C. Okay, let's move to the next question. Which of the following ideas are common between the teachings of Buddhist and the Jain religion? Okay, now please start marking your answers in the comment section, and if you're just joining the lecture, make sure that you go and like the stream. Okay, that will be very helpful. People, please like the stream. That will make sure that we reach more and more people, and more people will get benefited by it. So let's move to the question number 10. Which of the following ideas are common between the teachings of the Buddhist and the Jain religion? Now understand, Buddhist and the Jains are being both evolved from the Gangetic plain only. So people think that since they were coming from the foundational cultural ideas where they evolved were somewhat same, so there must be very many similarities. And they were, it's not like they were not, but there are also certain things in which they differed, and we have to focus on that. So question is asking that where they have the common belief set. So existence of God. So first of all, when it came to Gautam Buddha, he stated that, look, talking about God and presence of soul and this thing is not of our business. He didn't deny it, he didn't accepted it. He said that we shouldn't even talk about this. Okay. So he didn't took a stance, that what you can say. When it came to Jain said that we don't know if the God exists, but even if God exists, God has to be below the jinn. Okay, the jinnah. Okay, the leader, they are jinnah. Okay, there are 23 Tirthankar and jinnah. So the God has to be below the jinnah. So they also had a issue with the existence of God. So they did, both of them didn't accept it. Now soul does not exist, with the same thing I explained you. Philosophy of ahimsa and abstinence of the property is something which both of them, okay, accepted and propounded. And extreme penance is something which was actually followed by a section of the Jains, that is the Digambars. Okay, but when it came to Buddhism, Gautam Buddha focused more and more only on Madhyant path, that is the mid part. So extremity of either way, okay, extreme of lavishness or penance, both were rejected out. So fourth point can also not be correct. So 10th option B is correct, that you can mark. Okay, let's move forward. Question number 11th. Consider the following statements about the Indian Council Act 1892. Now people, Indian Council Act came, the second Council Act after the rebellion of 1857. Okay, first one was 1861, second one was 1892. So the question is about the second Indian Council Act, that was 1892. Number of additional members in Imperial Legislative Council and the Provincial Legislative Councils were increased. Okay, or were raised. That's the first statement. The official member of Indian Legislative Council were to be nominated by Bengal Chamber of Commerce provincial legislatures. And the third one says the principle of representation was introduced. Now, one need to understand here is the number members were actually increased of the executive council, and the number were imperial legislative council, and that was from 10 to 16. Okay, so first is right. The official members of the Indian Legislative Council were to be nominated by Bengal Chamber of Commerce. That is wrong. Not in the sense that Bengal Chamber of Commerce was not nominating anyone. They were actually given the right to nomination, but not for official members. They were given the right to nominate members for unofficial members. Now this is a trick which can happen with you. Okay, they will do these kind of things. Official, unofficial. You need to know what is official, what is unofficial, what is non-official. These differences has to be very clear. Then the principle of representation was introduced for the first time. That is also correct, because even though these people were nominated by Bengal Chamber of Commerce, there was certain kind of representation which was evolved, and therefore 11th option is ultimately the which we have to choose is C. Okay. Now the 12th one, with reference to the Shankardev, consider the following statement. Okay. First of all, a few things you need to know, that Shankardev was the Bhakti saint of 15th century, and he was a follower of Vaishnavism. His teachings often, so he was a leading proponent of Vaishnavism in Assam. That statement is correct. His teaching often known as Bhagavati Dharma, and his major composition include Kirtan Ghosh. Now this is actually also correct, because his teachings were called as Bhagavati Dharma, and that were a combination of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavad Purana. Okay, both combined. Now, his absolute deity whom he followed was Vishnu. This is an extra information I am giving you. Just remember. Okay, his ultimate absolute deity was Vishnu, and that's why Vaishnavism. And he encouraged the establishment of monasteries. Bilkul correct. That's correct. And they called it Satra. Okay, Satra, because these were the places where they gathered around for this Kirtan ceremony, and they used to call it Nam Kirtan. Okay, Nam Kirtan. Fine. So all of them are actually correct. Now this was actually one of the question which must in the question paper, which is given with the intention that even if you don't know the answers, you will be able to learn something from it, and therefore all of the three are correct. Okay. Consider the following commodities: indigo, saltpeter, silk, and opium. Which of the given above commodities were traded by the Dutch? That's the question. Now, understand this thing, that Bengal, Gujarat, Coromandel, these were the places from where the Britishers used to export silk. Bengal, or the not only the Britishers, other Europeans also, and Dutch obviously. Bengal, Gujarat, and whole of the Coromandel coast. Now beyond that, saltpeter was something which was exported from Bihar, and opium, afim, was something which was exported from the Gangetic Valley. Okay, the eastern UP, the North Bihar, that region. Okay. Indigo anywhere, Bengal again. You must have heard about the indigo revolt and all that, and so indigo plantation was started in 1770s or somewhere around, and all of them, either initially the French, the Dutch, everyone was involved in it. Later on, as I told you already, once the British monopoly was started developing, the Britishers took over the whole thing. Okay, so that's the whole thing. All the four are correct, and you have to mark D option, not C. Okay, D. So who has considered Avinash? Not C, it's D. Okay, all of them are correct in a way. Okay. Although, look, understand, if I am telling you about Dutch something, you need to understand Dutch East India Company established their headquarter not in Indian subcontinent. Okay, they established their headquarter in Batavia. Where is Batavia? Anyone? You must have heard about Indonesia. Okay, Indonesia's capital is Jakarta. Okay, the historical name of Jakarta is Batavia. Okay, and that's where they have established themselves. So they started working here, but after a while they shifted to Batavia. With reference to the Shrenis, that is guild of ancient India, consider the following statement. The guild had judicial power over its own members. The wages, rules of work, standard and prices were fixed by the guild. It provides training to craft person. It served as financial institutions for the money deposits. Now, for those who don't know this thing, understand that even now there are guilds in very many businesses. For example, in the jewelry business. Okay, if you have been to Delhi, there is a place called as Paratha Wali Gali. Okay, so if you go there, what you will see that all the shops in that gully, in that alley, will make parathas. So what they are a guild of parathas makers. Okay, so back in the day when there was no institutionalized way of banking, there was no institutionalized way of learning, so universities were not there and ITI was not there. How people will learn things, how people evolved, how they will improve their trade. For all these purposes, they ended up to the guild. They looked towards the guild, and this guild, okay, this guild actually then worked along. So option 14, okay, the answer is D. All of them are correct. Guilds played a very important role in the long run. The policies and structure of British authority altered dramatically after the revolt of 1857. Which of the following modifications did the British make after the uprising of 1857? Okay, so there are actually more number of options, and this will happen in many of the questions. Okay, this is something which is done with the sole single intention that some time will be wasted in just reading these questions. But yeah, fine, you will, in this question you will find one of the options such absurd that you will be able to reject it and you will find the answer. This is usually what is done in the paper. So post of Secretary of State for India was abolished and Viceroy was directly made responsible for the governance of India. Okay, so for the first thing you need to understand, post of Secretary of State was established. Okay, before this, till 1857 there was a board of control. Okay, that was there. So post of Secretary of State was not abolished. In the aftermath of the uprising of 1857, post of Secretary of State was established. The position of Viceroy was also established, but post of Secretary of State was not abolished at all. Okay. The number of European soldiers in the army was increased. That is true. The number of Europeans were increased in the ratio of 1:2 in Bengal and 2:5 in Madras and Bombay Presidency. Towards the princely state, the policy of annexation was totally abandoned. That is true. The Viceroy was actually appointed with the intention of giving a direct connect of the princely states rulers to the crown of Great Britain. So the idea, look, many books always write this thing, and let me clear this thing for you guys here, that the people always read this, that the office of Governor General was replaced by the office of Viceroy after the revolt of 1857. So if you read this thing anywhere, that statement is wrong. Okay, the office of Viceroy and the office of Governor General continued simultaneously from 1857 onwards, and it existed till 1947. That is the reason that if you'll see in the later act and enactments, whether it's Government of India Act 1919, Government of India Act 1935, everywhere the Governor General word is used. Viceroy word is used with the very intention when it comes to having a contact or having a relation with the princely states. Okay, so that thing you have to keep in mind. Now, if you go in the options itself, you will see that we have already said that first option is wrong, and by doing that first option wrong itself, you will see that you can reduce the options to A and B and just reject these things. Okay, and after this you will see that towards the princely state the policy of annexation was abolished. That is true. The rulers of these states were now authorized to adopt heirs. That is also true, and through that you can make the answer directly. That is option B is correct. Okay, so you don't even have to read all the points if the questions are very big many a time. So if you are trying to save time, make sure you read it properly and making sure, okay, fine, I have read point number 1, let me go through it. Okay, that way, that what are the options matching, because this whole process of elimination also helps a lot in many a time finding the answer. So do that, and let's move forward. Consider the following temples or caves: Virupaksh temple, Lepakshi temple, Jain cave at Setanvasal. Okay, now Which of the given above showcases mural paintings in India? Now, look, we are talking about Vijayanagar Empire here. Okay, all these temples, or initially the first two, Virupaksha and the Lepakshi temples, were made during the Vijayanagar expanded rule between the whole area of Hampi and Trichy. Now, paintings on the ceilings of Virupaksha is famous for there are paintings on the ceiling, okay, at top. And these paintings are also about Mahabharata, Ramayana, these things. Lepakshi temple also, but the paintings are not on the ceiling but on the side walls. Okay. Jain caves at Setanwasal, obviously. First of all, Jain caves, so it means this must not be from the Vijayanagar Empire, because Vijayanagar Empire had nothing to do with Jainism as such. Okay, there were people who practiced Jainism, but they didn't have any state-sponsored nature. Okay, Setanwasal, basically they were the work which was done in Setanwasal, the murals which are there were basically made during the the Pandyan ruler. Okay, Pandyan rulers. Fine. Got it? Chalo. So 16, the option is D. All of them are right. There are murals, paintings in all the three temples. With reference to the Ganas of ancient India, basically Gana is called as assembly. Okay. Whenever you hear about Jan Gan, that means people's assembly. Okay, that's where it comes from. Consider the following people: women, dasas and kamakar. Okay, which of the following mentioned above, group of people which are mentioned above, were not allowed to participate in these assemblies? Now everyone knows that, look, in the Rig Vedic times, women's conditions was good, but as and when the assemblies, these ganas involved, okay, you will see the representation of women's reduced. Okay, the das, that is slaves, anyway slaves were not allowed. And kamakars are basically, if you read, these word is again and again used in the Buddhist text a lot. Okay, the Buddhist texts which are usually written in Pali, they have mention of kamakars a lot. And these were the people who were landless laborers. And since they were landless laborers, obviously they were not given a representation in these ganas. So that's how you can easily find the answer. Okay, which of them were not allowed? So all three of them were not allowed. Okay, fine. Let's move forward. Consider the following pairs of movement with their leaders. Movement is on one side and leaders are on the other side. Now understand this thing here, that this is again something very important. This is match the column thing. So again, many a time you will able to find the answer even if you don't know all the correct option matched. You are not able to match all the correct option, still you can find the answer. That's the benefit of a match a column question. Now let's look. T2 Mir. Okay. Nithar Ali was the leader. Farezi movement, you will again see that. Okay. Farezi movement, Dudu Mia was the one who started. Okay, Ahmadiyya movement, okay, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, Aligarh movement, Sayyid Ahmad Khan, Deoband movement, okay, Mahmud ul Hasan. Now, Deoband movement, I can totally understand. There are 2-3 different names, so sometimes you find it difficult to match the column. But even in that case, you know very well, you must be knowing the Aligarh movement, as per which Aligarh Muslim University was established also in 1875. That was led by Sayyid Ahmad Khan, that you can differentiate very easily. Okay, Ahmadiyya movement also, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was the one who started it. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad went to extent of considering himself the Mahdi. Okay, and that created the whole divide between the Wahhabi Muslims and the Ahmadiyyas. Okay, its impact are still visible in Pakistani state. Okay, if you go to Pakistan, their Ahmadiyyas are even now not accepted as Muslims. So this is something which is easy to match. I think you'll be able to. The option is 18B. Okay. Consider the following statement about the Paika rebellion of 1817. So the Paiks of Andhra Pradesh were the traditional landed militia who enjoyed rent-free land tenures for their military service and policing functions on a hereditary basis. The dethronement of the Raja of Khuda had greatly reduced the power and prestige of the Pikes. Dinbandhu Santravas associated with this rebellion. Now, the Paikas or the Pikes, they were the traditional landed militia who were basically the people who provided stability and security in the territory in return of land where they acted as the zamindars. That is correct. But this was not happening in Andhra Pradesh. This was happening in what we now call as Odisha. Okay, basically the Utkal Plains, that region. Okay, so the first option is wrong because of this. This is again, that's why this is twisted, because people will think, okay, this is correct, we have heard about that landed militia, Paikas were landed militia, that is fine, but you have to be very clear that they have changed the name of the region where the Paikas were from. Okay, and rest of the option 2 and 3 are correct. Okay, so B option is correct effectively. Now, with reference to the Indus Valley civilization, the main crops of Harappan times are wheat and barley, but people also knew about cultivation of sesame and mustard and cotton. Now, understand this thing. Question has been asked that which of them is incorrect. Okay, so for the second statement is foreign trade was mainly conducted with Afghanistan and Iran. Now that is correct. Afghanistan, the whole lapis lazuli thing, the tin and all that was imported from Afghanistan. Iran, obviously, most of the trade was from Iran, otherwise also. So option 2 is right. For the option 1, you have to be very clear that this is actually true. There have been remains found which tells us that obviously cotton was there, mustard was there, but this was not in exceptional amount. The exceptional amount or the day-to-day crops which were used as eatables, daily eatables, they were wheat and barley. So that is correct. So both 1 and 2 are correct, and a question has been asked that which of them are incorrect, and therefore option D is right. Okay, yeah. Consider the following statement. Chishti and Sohrawardi are subclasses of Bhakti movement. Okay, now this is where the trick happens. Okay, they Chishti and Sohrawardi are Besahara Sufi sects. Okay, there were there were Sufi sects, Sufi groups in Islam, and Bhakti movement was happening in Hinduism. Almost they were contemporary of each other, and both were basically believing in the faith idea that you let yourself get involved or evolve within the supreme being, and you don't need anyone else support. Okay, in that too, in the Sufi sect, there were two factions: Ba Sahara faction and Be Sahara faction. The Ba Sahara faction were the one who accepted all the constraints of the Islam, and Be Sahara faction was one who were ready to practice things outside the constraints of Islam also. And among them, Chishti and Sohrawardi were the one, and therefore they got very huge acceptance in India. And obviously Chistis were the one who finally regulated or evolved into the most famous Sufi sects which were ever practiced in India. Nizamuddin Auliya and Nasiruddin Chirag-e-Dilli are the famous Bhakti saints? No, they are the Chisti Sufi saints. Okay, the option 2 is wrong, option 1 is also wrong. The early Sufi saints mingled freely with the people of lower classes, including Hindus, and this is actually correct. And that is the reason that Nasiruddin Chirag-e-Dilli was called Chirag-e-Dilli. Okay, because of his empathetic nature. Okay, so the third option is correct. And Sama, musical recitation to create a mood of nearness to God, was popularized by the Sufi saints. Yup. The Qawwalis which are famous everywhere, the Sufi Qawwalis, all the A.R. Rahman music, movies, there are a Sufi Qawwali most of the time. Okay, so all those are basically, if you want to know, the name is Sama. Okay, the evening Qawwalis which are performed in the front or in the Khanqa, that is the place where the Murshid used to live. Okay, so that fourth option is also right. The third and fourth, the B option is correct. Okay, these are pretty easy ones actually, people. Consider the following statement: Sayyid Ahmad Khan, Christodas Pal, V.N. Mandlik, K.L. Nulkar and Ras Bihari Ghosh were nominated members of the Imperial Legislative Council constituted by the Indian Council Act of 1861. The moderates demanded a majority of the elected Indians and the power to vote upon and amend the budget. Moderates also demanded self-government on the lines of self-governing colonies of Canada and Australia. Okay, which of them are correct? Now, this is a modern history question, and understand this thing, that in the immediate aftermath of revolt of 1857, the British government brought a lot of changes. The executive changes were brought by Government of India Act 1857, okay, 1857, and the legislative changes were brought by the Indian Council Act of 1861, and it was said that there has to be some representation of the natives, and the representation which came from the natives in the initial days were actually these people. So the option 1 is correct. The moderate leadership of the Congress after its immediate formation, or even immediately before the formation of Congress also, what were their demands? They were actually demanding on these lines that drain of wealth should reduce, and that was mostly highlighted by Dadabhai Naoroji and many others. And they were also demanding that the representations of Indian in the legislative process and as well as the bureaucratic process should also increase. So for the legislative process, they demanded that the council, Indian Council, Legislative Council should be expanded, and for the bureaucratic representation, they demanded that Indians should be allowed to participate in the ICS. Okay, so this option is also correct. Moderates also demanded self-government on the lines. Yep, this is also true. And this is something which were talked about a lot. And by 1906, it became the standard declared policy of Congress. Okay, when they said that a demand of autonomy was accepted by the Congress resolution in 1906 Calcutta session. Okay, so all three are correct. Okay, fine. Let's move forward. Why Avinash is saying B option? Which of the following were prevalent during the Rig Vedic age? Owning of land as a private property, knowledge of agriculture, awareness of metallurgical operations. Now, understand this thing. This ownership, individual property ownership, is a European idea. It is something which was brought to India by the European, and to be precise, by the Britishers. Okay, it was the idea of Warren Hastings and then Lord Cornwallis who implemented permanent settlement, from where private property ownership evolved to such an extent. Okay, before that the conceptualization was not so much. So leave about that. Going back to Rig Vedic age, okay, then also there was no private ownership of land. Okay, so the option 1 is wrong. Knowledge of agriculture was obviously there to the Rig Vedic period, because agriculture started in the Neolithic period itself, that is 6000 BC onwards. Rig Vedic period is considered to have started after 1500 BC. Okay, so obviously they had the knowledge of agriculture. Okay, awareness of metallurgical operation, that is also correct. It not only they knew it, they have proper names also for metallurgy. Okay, and after Rig Vedic period, once iron was evolved in 900 BC and all that time, you will see that the name Krishna is actually for the first time was given to the iron. Okay, later on it was associated with the god. Okay, so the 23 number, the option is B. Let's move forward. Faheen account on the Gupta administration provides useful information about the empire. Which of the following statement is correct based on his account? Now, look, there are 2-3 important Chinese travelers who have come to India. Okay, Faheen came during the Gupta period, and Wang Sang came during the Harsha period. Okay, I Sang came in the last verge of the Harsha period, and he came so late that he was not able to meet Harshvardhan himself. So that you can remember. Now after establishing the fundamental basic principle, basic factual information, let's come to this whole thing. Now the statement 1 talks about that Fahim stated in his writings that imposing a fine was a common punishment and a corporal punishment were avoided. Okay. Existence of multiple religious faith in India, okay, that he mentioned. Roads were not safe for travelers due to frequent theft. Now suppose point number 1 and 2 you didn't know. Suppose something happened and you forget that what is point number 1 and 2. Okay, you are not sure. This third statement is something which Wang Sang faced himself, okay, when he visited Kannauj during the reign of Harshvardhan. So if that is something which happened with Wang Sang, it cannot happen with Fahim. And Fahim actually wrote that he found the Gupta Empire to be very safe. So option 3 is wrong. People were not free to move and their movement were heavily controlled. Now, Fahim also mentioned that movement between places, between territories was also very easy and stabilized during the Gupta period. So that fourth one is also wrong. Okay. Now if third and fourth are wrong by elimination itself, you can say that answer is 24th A. But anyway, let me explain these things also. Both of these things, okay, Fahim outrightly mentioned there were not only what we now call as Hinduism. Basically there were Vedic ritual practices were practiced there. The Vaishnavism was practiced everywhere. Even the Jainism and Buddhism was practiced simultaneously, not on a very large level during the Gupta period, but it also existed. So existence of multiple religion also existed. Option 1 and 2 were right. Okay. Now identify the center of learning with the help of given information. Wang Sang, okay, wrote an account about this place. Preliminary, it was a center for learning of Mahayana Buddhism, and Harshvardhan invited monks from here to take part in philosophical assembly at Kannauj, which is the place. Now, if anyone wants to answer this question, please mark the question, people. Please mark the question. So the answer is very easy. The answer is Nalanda University. Okay, the place Nalanda. Wang Sang was, along with being a traveler, he was also a Buddhist scholar and spent a lot of time of his staying in India in Nalanda only. So he visited Nalanda, he wrote about Nalanda. A lot of information about ancient times Nalanda University is from the writings of Wang Sang. So option D is correct. Okay, there's not much to explain here. This is a basic factual information. Consider the following statement. The Age of Consent Act 1891 made it unlawful to marry a girl under the age of 12. The Sada Act of 1929 raised the marriage age to 18 for boys and 14 for the girls respectively. Which of them are correct? Now both of them are correct. First of all, those who directly want the answer. Now let me give some explanation. Okay. So in 1884, Rukma Bai case came into prominence, where a girl, 20-year-old girl, Rukma Bai, who was married at the age of 11, stated that she will not go with her husband to his house even if she is threatened to going to jail. She was like, okay, I'll go to jail, but I will not go to my husband's house. So that created a lot of fuss in 1887. And so much so that Queen Victoria herself had to get involved to resolve this issue. Okay, the Rukma Bai case. Then in 1889 you will see another girl, 11-year-old girl. Her name was Phulmani Das. Okay, Phulmani Das, Phulmoni, Phulmani Das. She died during the consummation of the marriage. So she was 11-year-old. Her husband was 35-year-old, and she died during the consummation of the marriage. Okay. And then it was thought that okay, this whole issue, child marriage issue, has to be resolved. And so in the aftermath of the Phulmani Das case, the minimum age of girl to marry was increased from 10 years to 12 years. So first statement is right. The second statement, the Sada Act of 1929, that is also true, that increased the age from 18 years for boys and 14 years for girls. Okay, so both of them are correct. Which among the following reforms initiatives were taken during the tenure of Lord Curzon? Now this is again something important. Establishment of Agricultural Research Institute in Pusa. That is correct. Okay. Look, Lord Lord Curzon was Viceroy of India between 1899 and 1905. Okay, in this 6 year, we usually know a lot about his misdoings, and mostly we talk about the partition of Bengal. But a lot of things, other things, were also taking place during while he was in office. Okay, one of them was the establishment of Agriculture Research Institute in Pusa, and in which even not only Lord Curzon was involved, but even his wife was also involved. Okay, and to bringing the funds from United States to establishing this organization. Okay, setting up of Imperial Cadet Corps, that was done in Lord Curzon's period. Passage of Calcutta Corporation Act, that is also true. This was done with the intention of reducing the impact of nationalist leader in the Calcutta Corporation. Introduction of the electric telegraph system in India, this is wrong. This happened in 1871 itself. Lord Curzon were nowhere in scene, so option 4 is wrong. Institution of Universities Commission, and following on their recommendation, Rayleigh Commission it was called, following on their recommendation, Universities Act was passed in 1904. Okay, this was also done with the intention of reducing the power or influence of nationalistic leaders in the universities in Bengal. Okay, so option 4 is wrong, rest of them are right. So by that you can see that option C, 27C option must be correct. Okay, let's move forward then. Jamuna is saying D. Okay, please people, if you are marking the answers in the chat box, try to write the question number next to your option, because many times what happens that whenever I am moving towards the chat box, okay, for example, if you are marking 27C, so mark it like this, 27C, okay, or 27C at least, mark it like this, okay, because whenever I'm moving towards the chat box, sometimes you have mentioned an answer for 26 and I think it's 27. It's not good. Okay, yeah. So let's move to the next question. With reference to the Vedic civilization, Rajasuya, Ashwamedha, Vajpaya were words which are again and again have been mentioned. What it means? So the first one says it's rituals and sacrifice performed by the king to strengthen his position. Okay. Now let me tell you people, since it's the solution section, it is right. But what are the other options? Let's see. Okay, just for fun. Mercenary army contingents that were owned by the local landlords. Okay, no. Land tax imposed on areas. No. Body of officials who maintained a record on the extent of empire. No. Okay, these were different practices. Ashwamedh Yagya. Okay, this is something you must have heard. The famous the horse thing. Okay, the horse is allowed to roam around the territory, and wherever he passes, okay, if the king or the prince of that particular territory is not opposing the Ashwamedh horse, that territory ultimately belongs to the ruler who has sent that horse, or otherwise the territory ruler has to fight the owner of the Ashwamedh horse. That is how it is done. It is done with the intention of increasing the importance of the ruler. Okay, the famously as per Ramayana, it was done by Ram himself. Okay, Rajasuya is basically the whole practice of coronation. Okay, coronation of the king is called as Rajasuya, and in that also sacrifice was done. Ashwamedh also, in the Ashwamedh Yagya, after the whole completion of the Yagya, when the horse comes back, okay, the horse is sacrificed. Vajpaya is basically a chariot race. Okay, Rath hote, so they usually basically do the chariot race, and in that chariot race, the king has to participate. Okay, so on all these things, whether it's the coronation ceremony, the Ashwamedh ceremony, or the Vajpaya ceremony, is done with the intention to increase the importance of the king in the zone. Okay, to strengthen his power. Okay, and these are all not only the enactments, these acts are also associated with very many rituals which are simultaneously performed. So option A is correct. Okay. Okay, so Vartika, Avinash, everyone has marked that. That's correct. Let's move forward. Consider the following statement. Jizya is a yearly tax levied on permanent non-Muslim subjects of a state governed by the Islamic law. Akbar, during his reign, incriminated the jizya on non-Muslims. There has to be a space in between. Okay, यहाँ पे. Okay. Akbar abolished pilgrimage tax and the practice of forcible conversion of prisoners of war. If anyone wants to mark the answer, please mark, and let's move forward and I'll explain how it is done. Now, let me tell you first few things about jizya. Jizya was first implemented in the 8th century AD in Sindh, and it was imposed on the jimmis. Okay, what they were called? The Jimmis, jimmis. Okay, these are those who don't have faith in Islam. Okay, the intention was not to exploit anyone initially. The intention initially was that in the state, okay, the Muslims already had to pay two other type of taxes, and those were called as zakat, zakat, and the khums. Okay, now these taxes were basically religious taxes which all the Muslims had to pay. Now, since the Hindus didn't have to pay any such taxes, and therefore the rulers used to impose jizya on them. There is another explanation of this, that since the Muslim rulers used to consider all their wars to be jihad, so anyone who didn't accept it or had faith in Islam was not allowed to participate in the jihad. So if they didn't participate in the jihad, how else they are going to serve the state? And therefore they were imposed this extra tax that was called jizya. So these are the two different explanations which are given in historical books for jizya. But over the time period, jizya turned into an exploitative tax. Okay, initially this was done with a neutral idea, but over the period it turned into an exploitative tax that was imposed on the majority community. So when Akbar came in power in 1564, he removed the jizya, as well as he also removed the Tirth Yatra Mahsul, that was called as pilgrimage tax, okay, which was imposed on the non-Muslims. So using that, you can all easily find that option has to be, the correct answer is to be 1 and 3. Okay, fine. The famous Congress session at Lucknow in 1916 resulted in which of the following? Okay, formation of a national body that would serve as the future Constituent Assembly. No, this is not there. The Congress session of Lucknow, which is famously called as the outcome was the Lucknow Pact. Okay, between the Muslim League and the Indian National Congress. Indian National Congress accepted the separate electorates given to Muslim League or given to Muslim community in Indian Council Act 1909. In return, Muslim League accepted or followed or towed the line of Congress when it came to demand of autonomy. That is the resolution passed by the Kolkata Congress session in 1906. Okay, so this was the understanding of Lucknow Pact that was reached in 1916. Demand of Swaraj to the British government, that was not done here. Okay, so that is also something you can reject. Demand of Swaraj to the British government was first took place in 1906, not 1916. An agreement for the coordinated action British rule by the Indian National Congress and Muslim League. Okay, that was accepted here, that actually happened here. Merger of the moderates and extremist faction of the Indian National Congress, that too happened here. Look, in 1950, Firoz Shah Mehta was already dead. So the whole thing of Surat split, which happened in 1907, was no more a issue. Bal Gangadhar Tilak, who was in jail between 1908 and 1914, was out of jail, and with the help of any Besant, he was able to reach Lucknow and participate in the Congress Lucknow session. And over there, moderate and extremist faction again united, empowering the Congress. So 3 and 4 both are correct. Fine. With reference to Sangam period revenue administration system, Karai refers to. Now look, this is a bit tricky question. Now if you have read in detail the Sangam period revenue administration bureaucratic system, you will be able to do this question. But sincerely, there will be 1 or 2 such questions where effectively what they are doing is they are giving you a word and asking you whether you know the meaning or not. Okay, so even in cases when such a question comes, many a time leaving them or skipping them is much better option than spending your precious time and also taking a risk. But if you know it, it's good. But there is not some trick or some understanding which I can provide you. I can just tell you some factual information about the Karai, Okay, Karai is actually the land text as per mentioned in the Sangam literature in the Pandyan times. Okay, and this was 1/6 of the produce. Nothing more than this. Okay, there is nothing more to give explanation in this question. Okay, this is just a factual information. Consider the following reforms during the Delhi Sultanate. Hereditary nature of the Ikta system. Jizya was strictly imposed on non-Muslims. He was the first sultan to impose irrigation tax. He also developed the royal factory called Karkhana, in which thousands of slaves were employed. And this he is basically Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Now Firoz Shah Tughlaq came in power after the demise of his cousin, not cousin, actually his uncle in a way, because he was a nephew of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Okay, now Firoz Shah Tughlaq, what he did, first of all, if you need to answer this Firoz Shah Tughlaq question, he ruled between 1351 and 1388. And to answer this question, let me tell you something important, that Firoz had a specific tendency. He was not a very great warrior or some military man. He didn't had any great military conquest to his name. So how he ruled? He ruled by pleasing others. So what he did? He made sure that he provided or he delegated powers to his juniors. Okay. Okay. So he actually made the hereditary nature of Ikta system. Okay. That is correct. Okay. So what he did? He gave the Iktidari to the Iktidars and subsequently their sons in the hereditary manner, making sure these sons will be always aligned to Firoz Shah Tughlaq, knowing very well that if anyone else comes in power, this Iktidars will be taken away. Now, he also wanted to make sure that he is very good terms of the orthodox conservative Islamic leadership. Okay, and therefore he imposed jizya on non-Muslims. Not only that, he was the first to impose jizya on the Brahmin community also. Okay, he was the first sultan to impose irrigation tax. That is true. He also developed royal factories in Karkhana where thousands of slaves were employed. And it is said that Firoz Tughlaq had 200,000, that is 2 lakh slaves who were directly accountable to him. Okay, so all the four are correct. So what you will do if you are not a very, you don't have a military might, you are not a very great military conquest to your name, you will do make sure that people are directly aligned to you in more and more numbers. Okay, and their benefit is in your development and their loss in your downfall, and then you will be able to rule. So that is how Firoz Tughlaq maintained himself in power for more than 37 years. Okay, let's move forward. Consider the following statement. Ramakrishna Paramhans rejected the traditional bhakti marg and shout salvation through the modern Gyan marg. Ramakrishna movement had an objective to create a band of monks to spread the message of Vedanta. Swami Vivekananda, a disciple of Ramakrishna Paramhans, laid the foundation of the Ramakrishna Math to further the objectives of Ramakrishna movement. Now, first of all, we'll start with the factual information. First of all, Ramakrishna Paramhans, Swami Vivekananda never laid the foundation of Ramakrishna Math. Ramakrishna Math was always existing there. The Ramakrishna mission was something which Swami Vivekananda propounded later on. So the third option, first of all, you can just cut it out. That is not true. By that only you can eliminate the C and D option. Now let's come to the second option. Ramakrishna movement had an objective to create a band of monks to spread the message of Vedanta. This is totally true. This is what Ramakrishna Paramhans was trying to do from Kalighat. Okay, while living in Kalighat also, he was trying to make a band of monks, and one among these band of monks was Swami Vivekananda. So option 2 is correct. Okay. Now, Ramakrishna Paramhans rejected the traditional bhakti marg and shout salvation through modern Gyan marg. No, this is totally absurd. Ramakrishna Paramhans was someone who was totally dedicated to the traditional bhakti marg. Okay, it was Swami Vivekananda who then propounded some rational and pragmatic ideas. into what was already stated by Ramakrishna Paramhans. Okay, and that's why once Swami Vivekananda combined the ideas of Ramakrishna Paramhans with some kind of neo-rationalism, what he came up with, we popularly know it as neo-Hinduism. Okay, so the answer for this one is number 2 and neo-Hinduism. I'll just write it down. Okay, fine. 34. Match list 1 and list 2 and select the correct answer from the codes below. Okay. Elephanta Cave, Bagh Cave, Aihole, Mahabalipuram. Okay. Where the states, and this is again something which has to be remembered, there is not very much to be explaining here to be done. Okay. So, first of all, Elephanta Cave, okay, right next to Mumbai. Okay. Maharashtra is the answer 1 to 4. So either the answer is A or B, rest you can reject directly. Then Bagh Caves, they are in Madhya Pradesh. Okay, everyone knows. So you can straightforward mark the B answer. This is something you have to remember. Otherwise also Mahabalipuram is in Tamil Nadu. Okay, so that D to 2, this is B option. Okay, this is how you can easily do it. With respect to the Indian National Congress INA session, with respect to the Indian National Congress INA sessions, consider the following statements. Badruddin Tayyab ji was the first Muslim president of INC. That is actually true. That was in 1887. Okay. The word Swaraj was introduced by Dadabhai Naoroji for the first time in the Calcutta session of 1906. This is actually true. I have already explained this thing in the past question. Sarojini Naidu was the first woman president of INC. This is actually wrong. The first one was Annie Besant in 1917. Okay, woman president. So answer is A. Let's move forward. With reference to social conditions of women during Vijayanagar Empire. Now look, understand this about Vijayanagar Empire, that positive remarks of Vijayanagar Empire are usually correct only. Okay, there are very few negative things which are highlighted. So I'm not saying there was nothing wrong in Vijayanagar Empire, but usually Vijayanagar Empire in the past 2-3 decades have been shown as an example of good medieval Indian state. Okay, now let's build with that idea. The institution of Devdasi flourished during this period, right or wrong? Okay. So there were Devdasis, the institutions were there, although one can say the ill practices of Devdasi institutions, they didn't have came in then. So the option 1 is right. Each class of society started practicing monogamy during this period. This is actually wrong. Monogamy was practiced by the lower strata of people. Okay, widows could remarry during this period. This is actually right. Okay, so I told you there was some positive aspect, but not everything was perfect. Okay, don't compare it with the 21st century liberal society, but in comparison to rest of the medieval India, you can compare it that they were doing better. Okay, so the answer for 36 is B, 1 and 3. 37. Identify the personality based on the given below statements. Initially, he was a follower of Ramanuja and later he founded his own sect. He was the first to employ the vernacular medium to spread his ideas. Kabir was his most famous disciple. Now, while leading Bhakti movement, the hierarchy will be given to you in the session. The Sunya IS notes also contain it. Otherwise, let me tell you, Kabir was a disciple of Ramanand. And from that itself, you can answer this question. But anyway, if you don't know this, you can always remember that Ramanand was the first to use the vernacular, local language to reach more and more people. So that also gave the answer. That is D option. There is not much explanation here too. Consider the following statement about the Montfort reform, that is Montagu-Chelmsford reform, on which Government of India Act 1919 was based. So, it introduced diarchy for the executive at the level of the central government? No. It introduced introduced diarchy at the state level. Diarchy at the center was introduced in Government of India Act 1935. So, first option is wrong. Okay, first option is wrong. Then what? Okay, now second option, subjects were divided into two lists, reserved and transferred. That is right. Okay, if you are talking about diarchy was explained in this manner that certain rules and regulations, certain decision making process was in hand of the governors and his official representative, and rest were given into the people who came from the legislatures. Okay, they were basically the ministers. Okay, and they were the ones who, the subjects which were transferred. Okay, the bicameral legislature was introduced at the central level, that is right. Okay, Central Legislative Assembly and Council of State, both were there in 1919. Women were also given the right to vote for the first time. This is also true. This was in line with the then ongoing female suffragette movement in Britain. So 2, 3 and 4 are the answer, 38C. Okay. Now let's move forward. 39. Okay. With reference to the Iltutmish, consider the following statement. So Iltutmish was the son-in-law of Qutbuddin Aibak. He came in power in 1210. Qutbuddin, throughout his rule of 4 years, from 1206 to 1210, as the ruler of Delhi Sultanate, he actually ruled from Lahore. And after him, Iltutmish also started ruling from Lahore only. But then he shifted the capital to Delhi. So that statement is right. Iltutmish introduced the Arabic coinage and silver tanka. That is also correct. So both of them are correct. Okay. 39. The answer is C. Fine. Which of the following were recommendations of the Simon Commission set up in 1927? Okay. So Simon Commission. Okay. You must be knowing Simon Commission by now. Indian Constitution would be a federal one. That is correct. Simon Commission suggested this thing. Legislative Assembly shall be elected through the universal adult franchise. No, this is not correct. Look, if the Britishers were ready to give universal adult franchise, India would have automatically reached a state of democracy without even them declaring it. So this is something which was not negotiable. They were not going to give this ever. The Indian government should have total authority over the Supreme Court. This was actually given by Simon Commission. So you can remember that thing. Okay. So you can just reject the second point and you start looking into the options, and you will see that there was only one option which says this thing. So that is 1 and 3 only. Okay. Simon Commission also talked about the Federal Supreme Court. Okay, which was actually there in Government of India Act 1935. 1941st question, the reference to the life of Buddha, consider the following statements. Places and important events, both have to be done. Okay, so in the life of Buddha, first of all, let me tell you directly, Lumbini was the place where he was born. Okay, Bodh Gaya was the place where he reached the Dharma Chakra Parivartan, that is Gyan Ki Prapti. Okay, below the Bodhi tree. Then he went to Sarnath, gave the sermon to 5 of his erstwhile friends or his associates, you can call them. And finally, Kushinagar is the place where he reached Mahaparinivan. So which of the following is correctly matched? That's the question. So you can do it directly, and option is C. Okay. The following is a listing of criteria of classification excerpted from the Ain-e-Akbari for land. Which of the following is correctly described? Now, Ain-e-Akbari talks about 4 type of land. Okay, based on the fertility of the soil. Okay, and the 4 of them are, and it's mentioned in the answer only. You don't have to remember. Polaj, Parauti, Chachar, and 4th one is not mentioned here. That is Banjar. And in the Ain-e-Akbari stated that in 1590, around 1580 to 1590, the system was evolved so that piece of land where agriculture was taking continuously, every year revenue was getting collected, that was Polaj. Parauti was the area which was left out for cultivation for some time to recover. Chachar was the area where 3 to 5 years you have to leave that area, that particular piece of land, and after that you can cultivate for 1 or 2 years, then again you have to leave it for 3 to 5 years so that it can regain its fertility. And finally Banjar came into being, any piece of land where more than 5 years, okay, there were no cultivation, then that piece of land was called as Banjar. So that was the definition given in Ain-e-Akbari about the fertility division of the land. Okay, so based on this you can easily mark the answer is B, not A. This is not right. B only. Okay. Now let's come to the next one. Alauddin Khilji passed 4 ordinances to make his reign free from rebellion. And these were what? So he was expanding southwards, and there were very high chances that there might be a rebellion in armed forces. So first of all, he confiscated the properties of the nobles. That is true, he did that. He had a very evolved intelligence system. Okay, that is also true. And they were used to keep a watch on the noblemen in his court. The public sale of liquor was also stopped. Okay, and he also forbidden the nobles from interacting each other without the permission of the sultan, so much so that he stopped the social gatherings and festivities in Delhi. He stopped the nobles to interact and get their wards children also married among each other unless and until they have the permission of the sultan. So he went to such an extent to make sure that his government or his power, he was not removed from the office through a coup. Okay, so you can mark all four of them are correct. Okay. Consider the following statements about the Swaraj Party. Now, Swaraj Party is something which was made in the aftermath of non-cooperation movement. Okay, in 1923. It was formed after the split within Congress in the Gaya session due to the calling of the non-cooperation movement. That is correct. Motilal Nehru and C.R. Das, Chittaranjan Das, that is, was associated with the party. That is also correct. And they were demanding to enter into the parliamentary process which has evolved as per Government of India Act 1919, and that is the third option. So all three of them are correct. There is no much explanation needed to be given here. With respect to the Neolithic age, consider the following statement. The Neolithic people used weapons made of bones. Pottery first appeared in this phase. The placing of domestic dogs in graves of the masters is a common feature seen in the Neolithic sites. Now, Neolithic age started from 6000 BC onward. First of all, you need to know this thing. Okay, agriculture was first of all evolved in Neolithic period. So people started settling down. When people started settling down, they started doing agriculture. They needed to keep water. They needed to keep grains along with themselves. Okay, so pottery was evolved in this period. That is right. Okay, bones were used in this period as a tool. That is correct. Okay. The placing of domestic dog in graves, this was an exceptional thing. This was not something which was done throughout all the Neolithic sites. This was just done in one place called as Burzahom in Kashmir. Okay, this is the only site where you find domestic dog being found in the grave of his master. That is one exceptional thing not happening everywhere. So third option is wrong. Rest of them are correct. Okay, 1 and 2 are correct. Which of these earliest cities were located to the east of the Indus River? Now this is easy. You just need to know that if you take something like this. Okay, this is Gujarat and Pakistan's map. Okay, Indus goes something like this. Okay, and if you see, so out of everything else, there is a thing called as Sukta Jindor. Sukta Jindor is right here. Okay, it's in the west of the Indus. This is the east of the Indus, and easily you can mark that all the other Kalibangan is in Gujarat, Rakhigadi is in Haryana, Dholavira is also in Gujarat. Okay, so you can easily mark that option is A. 1, 2 and 3 are on the east side of Indus River. Fine. Consider the following statement with respect to Ghadar Party. Now, Ghadar Party was established in Los Angeles in a way, or San Francisco you can say. Okay, on the west coast of America, west coast of North America. The Ghadar Party was a revolutionary organization centered on a weekly publication headquartered in Berlin. Okay, no, it was headquartered in San Francisco. It was initially established in Vancouver, the grouping, but then they shifted and started publishing the newspaper from San Francisco. The Ghadar Party was led by Lala Hardayal, Ramchand, Bhagwan Singh, Katar Singh Saraba and Maulvi Barkatullah. Okay, there has to be a word Maulvi in between here. So that is actually right. That's the leaders, name of the leaders of Ghadar Party. Defense of India Act 1950 was passed in order to crush the Ghadar movement. That is also correct. When the First World War started, Ghadarite party members planned to come to India in large number and get inside the Indian Armed Forces, British Indian Armed Forces, and start a coup against the British government. And therefore, Defense of India Act immediately was implemented. Okay, so 47, the answer is D. You can easily mark it. In the context of medieval India, consider the following: Aram Bagh, Humayun Tomb, and Shalimar Garden of Kashmir. First of all, those who don't know this, let me tell you this. Aram Bagh is in Agra, and it was the gravesite of Babur. Okay, Babur was initially buried here. His tomb was here. Later on, his remains were excavated and taken to Kabul as per his last wish. Okay, but initially his tomb was in Aram Bagh, Agra. So it was also made in this pattern, that is Char Bagh. Okay, there is 1 Bagh, 2 Bagh, 3 Bagh, 4 Bagh. Water flowing through mid, and then 4 different sides have water. Okay, so in the context of medieval, considered Aram Bagh, Humayun Tomb, and Shalimar Garden. Okay, which of them have Char Bagh style of architecture? All three of them. Okay, this is the most essential garden making style of Mughals, that is Char Bagh style. Consider the following statement with respect to the Charter Act of 1833. The company's monopoly on commerce with India came to an end. No, look, company's monopoly with commerce with India came into end in 1813 only. In 1833, the company's monopoly to trade with China and trade in tea, that was also happening in China only, that also came to end. Okay, that also came to end. Okay, the company's monopoly on commerce with India came to an end. That statement is wrong. That happened in 1813 only. It included measures for abolition of slavery. That is right. That was in accordance with the British Parliamentary Enactment of 1833 that slavery should be abolished from all the colonies. And so finally slavery was abolished in India in 1843. This is an extra information. Madras and Bombay government recovered legislative rights. No, their legislative rights were not recovered in 1833. They were taken away. They were returned only in aftermath of 1857 revolt. Okay, so the third one is also wrong. Okay, the option 49, only second option is correct. Okay, 50th, with reference to Sulh-e-Kul, consider the following statement. Now understand, Sulh-e-Kul and Deen-e-Ilahi were two things which were initiated by Akbar. Okay, Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar, the Mughal Badshah. Now the thing is that while Deen-e-Ilahi was a religion in its own right, Sulh-e-Kul was just an understanding which was not evolved with the intention to resolve the issues between the Hindus and the Muslim. It was evolved to reduce the issues between the Shias and the Sunnis. Okay, there was Shia-Sunni riots going on during the reign of Akbar, and therefore Sulh-e-Kul was evolved. And another reason was, there were also very huge amount of factionalism in the Mughal court itself. There were Turanis, Hindustanis, Afghanis, Turki, everyone was present, and everyone has a faction. So Sulh-e-Kul also played a role in resolving issues over there. Okay, so that you need to understand first of all when we are talking about Sulh-e-Kul in any manner of the thing. Okay, so which of them are correct when we are talking about this? So the ideal, the first option is correct. Okay, the idea of Sulh-e-Kul was implemented through the state policies. That is also correct. Abu Fazl describes idea of Sulh-e-Kul as the cornerstone of enlightenment rule. That is also correct. Abu Fazl wrote Ain-e-Akbari, that was the biography of Akbar, if you want to know this. Practitioners of Sulh-e-Kul were free to challenge and undermine the authority of state as long as it was done non-violently. Okay, now this is not correct actually. Okay, you have to be very crystal clear that practitioners of Deen-e-Ilahi were free to challenge and were actually free to practice their faith and not join Deen-e-Ilahi. That was optional. But Sulh-e-Kul was not optional, and even if you don't know this thing, that also fine. No ruler in the whole world ever is going to allow anyone to undermine the authority. Okay, even government of India says, even now in 21st century, that you can protest non-violently. We accept it. But does the government of India says that you can undermine our authority? No, that is not allowed ever in the history, and that not will be allowed ever in the future. So fourth option is generically also wrong. So if you don't know anything about else, then also you will be able to negate the fourth option and by doing that you will reach to 1, 2 and 3, and then you can mark the answer as A. Okay, fine. B, who is saying B? Why you people are saying Ashutosh B? B is not correct, boy. Now let's move to the 51st question, that is consider the following foreign travelers: Ibn Battuta, Nicole de Conti, Abdul Razak and Domenico Pise. Now Ibn Battuta was a Moroccan, okay. Nicole de Conti was a Venetian, that is from Venice. Abdul Razak was a Persian and Domenico Pise was a Portuguese. Which of the given above traveler left account of the socio-economic conditions of the Vijayanagar Empire? Now all of them visited Vijayanagar Empire. Okay, you need to understand, all of them visited Vijayanagar Empire. Vijayanagar Empire had a great, okay, yeah, Vijayanagar Empire had a great and prospering trade relation with the international level. Okay. Now let's move to the next question, that is 52nd. Match the following places with personalities associated with them during the civil disobedience movement. Now Gandhi led the movement from his ashram to Dandi, okay, but what was happening in rest of the country, that is the question about. So understand, this is something again you have to mug up. We can't really there is not much of an explanation in this question. Okay, so Tamil Nadu, the movement was started led by in Tamil Nadu, okay, by C. Rajgopalachari, who later in 1937 also became the premier of Madras Presidency. Okay, in Malabar, it was led by K. Kalappan. Okay, K. Kalappan later on became the leader of Communist Party of India also, and also played as the leader of opposition in the first elected government in 1952. Okay, these are some extra information I am just barging in because these are sometime helpful. Okay, Odisha, it was led by Gopal Bandhu Chaudhary. Okay, Bengal, it was led by Bengal, it was led just give me a moment. Bengal and Assam. Okay, so Bengal, it was led by Subhash Chandra Bose, and Assam, it was led by Chandraprabha Shekhania. Okay, fine. Now, but Subhash Chandra Bose, why I hesitate a bit? Because the overall involvement of Subhash Chandra Bose in civil disobedience movement is something of a issue. Okay, there are very many scholars who say that Subhash Chandra Bose was not very much involved in the whole happening of civil disobedience movement. But if the option is there, you have to mark Subhash Chandra Bose. If it's not there, it's fine. Okay, Bengal Congress was one of the provincial Congress committees who didn't participated very much in the civil disobedience movement. That's the thing. Now let's move forward. Consider the name of the personality and literary work they were related to. Gopal Hari Deshmukh, who was also known as Lok Hitwadi. Okay, he used to write in the newspaper Prabhakar. Lokmanya Tilak, okay, he was not related to Sudharak. He was not related to Sudharak. Actually, Gopal Ganesh Agarkar, G.G. Agarkar, who used to work at that time for Lokmanya Tilak, had his differences with Lokmanya Tilak and started writing his new newspaper Sudharak. Okay, Jyotirao Phule, he actually wrote this book called as Gulamgiri, and about this I mentioned in the starting lecture of the lecture itself, that it was a book in which he compared the oppressed community of India, the depressed class community of India, with the African Americans on United States of America. Okay, and in this book he appreciated the actions of American Civil War 1861 to 1865. Okay, Bal Shastri Jambekar, he actually published Darpan. That's correct. Okay, so 1, 3 and 4 are correct. Now 54th, which of the following literary source have reference to the age of Mauryas? Okay, so Arthashastra, look, it's not written that it should have been written during the age of Maurya. It is saying that it has reference to the age of Maurya. Arthashastra, it was actually written during the age of Maurya, understandable. Kautilya, so fine. Indica, the writings of Megasthenes, who was ambassador to the court of Chandragupta Maurya, in the court of Chandragupta Maurya, and therefore these recordings are also from the time period only. But Mudra Rakshas was written in 9th and 10th century AD. Okay, but it talks about, it wasn't basically, it's a playwright, it's talk about how Chandragupta Maurya came to power with the help of Chanakya. Okay, and since it's reference to the age of Maurya, this is also right, although it was not written during the age of Maurya. Amar Kosh is totally different thing. Amar Kosh is actually written by Amar Simha, and it was Amar Simha, and it was written during the Gupta period. Gupta period. Fine. So fourth one you can reject directly. 54th, the answer is B. Okay. Now let's move forward. Consider the following pairs and caves and the locations, and we'll compare them. Udayagiri, Khandagiri caves, and basically Udayagiri, Khandagiri are very famous. Okay, that famous elephant is on the gate of the cave. It is in Odisha. Okay, so the first is not matched. Pandavlini caves, Madhya Pradesh. No, Pandavlini caves are in Maharashtra. Okay, so this is also not matched. Lakhudiyar caves, there are murals in Lakhudiyar caves, the Neolithic murals and all that. Okay, that's not in Himachal Pradesh, that's in Almora, that is in Uttarakhand. Okay, so none of them, okay, none of the pair match. The answer is 55 to A. Okay. With reference to the agricultural reforms under the Delhi Sultanate, consider the following statements. Takavi loan were given to the farmers not only to buy seeds but also to extend cultivation. This is actually correct. This was done during the Tughlaq dynasty, okay, and it was done on the very exponential level, okay. So that is correct. A separate department of agriculture was established. That is also correct, but the name was not Diwane Fasal, it was Diwane Kohi. Diwane Kohi, and it was basically an experimental system in which a land area of 8 mile by 8 mile was taken over, and then farming used to be done over there during the time of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Okay, so this is something you need to know. Okay, so the answer is only B is correct, not the first one. By seed, but an answer is has to be which of them are incorrect. So yeah, only the second one is incorrect, because separate department name was Diwane, not Diwane Fasal, Diwane Kohi. Okay. Consider the following events: visit of Simon Commission, adoption of Purna Swaraj as a resolution, Deepavali declaration. Now I'll just write the years directly. Visit of Simon Commission, that happened in 1927-28. Okay. Adoption of that whole period, basically. It's not like I'm confused between the dates. They started in 1927, they came in 1928. Adoption of Purna Swaraj resolution, that happened in 1906. Okay, the Deepavali declaration, that is also called as October Declaration of Lord Irwin. Okay, that happened in 1929, immediately before the Purna Swaraj resolution. Lahore conspiracy case, okay, that also happened in the same time, 1929. Launch, but that happened before October 1929. This is October 1929. Launch of civil disobedience movement, that happened in March 1930. Now you have to place them in order. Okay, or okay, no, the question is not even that. Who was the viceroy when the given above events took place? Okay, that's easy. I thought they want to place them in order, otherwise. Okay, so Lord Irwin was there in office, because that's why it's also called as October Declaration and Irwin Declaration of October 1929. Okay, so that is pretty easy. I didn't thought this question to be this easy. I thought they are going to ask to place them in order. Okay, yeah. So no, not Lord Willingdon, Ashutosh. The answer is Lord Irwin. Okay, fine. Consider the following statement: in the reign of Sikandar Lodi, Vasco da Gama landed in India. That is actually correct. Vasco da Gama landed in India in Calicut in 1498. Sikandar Lodi was not ruling Calicut at that time. Obviously, he never ruled Calicut. But at that time, Sikandar Lodi was a ruler in Indian subcontinent. In the reign of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, Ibn Battuta came from Morocco to India. This statement is also correct. Not only he came to India, Muhammad bin Tughlaq appointed Ibn Battuta as a judge in Delhi. Okay. And then he went on to appoint him as the chief Maulvi of the mosque in Delhi. That also he did. During the reign of Achyuta Raya in Vijayanagar Empire, Francois Burney came to India. First of all, Francois Burney never visited Vijayanagar Empire. That is wrong. Francois Burney went to Mughal court and he was working with Dara Sikho. That is, who was the eldest son of Shah Jahan. Okay, so the third option is wrong. You can directly mark only 1 and 2 are right. Okay. Fernandez Nunes was the one who went to Vijayanagar Empire, the Portuguese traveler. Now, 59th, Cobb's following statement regarding Swadeshi movement of 1905 and 1906. Now, this was the first mass movement in India. Okay. Corps of volunteers became very popular and powerful means of mass mobilization. That happened. It's true. Boycott of foreign goods was observed in many parts of Bengal. That is also true. National Council of Education was established. That is also true. Public meeting and processions emerged as major methods of popular expression. That is also true. All of them are true regarding, because as I just told you, it was first time mass mobilization was taken on the ground. Okay. Now, with reference to the Sufism in India, consider the following statement. Maktubat. Now, Maktubat is actually a word which means is a letter from the Murshid to the Murid. Now, who is a Murshid and who is a Murid? Understand this thing. Murshid is the teacher. Murid is the student. In Sufi ideas, and they used to live in a khanka. Okay. If you right now also you go to any Sufi dargah either in Ajmer or Delhi, the place where the dargah is called as khanka. Okay, when they were alive they used to live over there. So Maktubat is basically a letter in which directions are given by the Murshid to the Murid after he passes away. Okay, so Maktubat was a donation given by common people? No, that is usually zakat only. The Sufi Khanka was the place where Pir gives spiritual training to his disciples. That is correct. Murshid was the successor of a Sufi saint. No, Murshid himself was the Sufi saint. Murid were his disciples, and one among the very many disciples used to take over or succeed. Okay, so the option is only 2. Okay. Now, with reference to the Indus Valley civilization, consider the following. And the first one is cow, then people leaves, hummed bull and elephant, horse, camel, lion and unicorn. Now, which of the following depiction cannot be found on Harappan seals? Now, you need to remember a few things about Harappan seals. What kind of Harappan seals have been seen? People leaves have been seen. Okay. Hummed bull are very famous, and elephants are also visible. Okay. Horses, actually they are not seen anywhere on the Harappan seals. Okay. Camels have been seen. Okay. Unicorns have been seen. Okay. Lions have not been seen anywhere. Okay. I don't really think so lions have been seen anywhere. Lions, no. There have been no lions anywhere in the Harappan seals as such. Or there might be. Okay. So consider which of them cannot be found is the question. So cow nowhere is found, so 1 is to be the answer. Then horses nowhere have to found, that has to be the answer. Camel, I have not seen camel also. And the lion, that also. So 1, 4, 5 and 6, the option is B. Okay, not C. Ashutosh, not C. Unicorn is widely available. Okay, the question is which of them are not depicted. With reference to the Indian national movement, what was the basic difference in the ideology of moderates and the extremists? Okay, now extremists relied on the use of brute force and annihilation of the British Empire. This is just too vague a term, so let's not, these are not because moderate wish to achieve the same things but through secret means. Nothing was secret, everyone knew what moderates wanted. 3 P's: prayer, petition and protest. What is secret in this? Nothing is secret in this. Moderates wanted the British to rule longer in the country. Extremists held an opposite view. No, the objective was same. Everyone wanted, by the starting of 20th century, everyone wanted the Britishers to be out, but the tools were different. Okay,
Moderates believed in the providential mission of the British and pushed for gradual constitutional and legal reform. Extremists relied on agitation and movement. This seems to be correct. Extremists did not want India to become a welfare state after gaining independence. No extremists were absolute sure that they want India to become a welfare state only. Okay, they even went to talk about India becoming a socialist state. You can only have to read about HSRA manifesto. Okay, so the answer for this one is C. Okay, that moderates were talking about over the period evolution, over the period getting more and more constitutional and legal reforms. Extremists were trying to get it done immediately. Okay. Now, with reference to the Lingayat movement, consider the following statement. Lingayats are worshippers of the, first of all, Lingayat community lives in Karnataka, and the whole movement started as a reform movement in the 12th century. Okay. Lingayats are worshippers of Shiva. Fine, that's correct. Okay, they even call themselves as Veer Shivai. Veer Shivais. They strongly opposed the caste system and rejected fast, feast, pilgrimage and sacrifice. Okay. Now, understand this is also correct. They are in a way they are a liberal movement. They rejected the idea of caste system. Okay. And this is something you have to understand. They opposed widow remarriage and favored child marriage. Look, no one writes that they support child marriage. They never supported child marriage. As I just told you, they are, in a way, they were a liberal idea of their time. So they actually supported widow remarriage and opposed child marriage. So the third statement is wrong. First and second is correct. Consider the following events. Peasants movement in Bardoli, Gandhi-Irwin Pact, passage of Indian Official Secrets Act, Mahatma Gandhi found All India Harijan Sangh, and they have to be arranged in order. So peasants movement in Bardoli happened somewhere around 1928. Okay, Gandhi-Irwin Pact happened in 1931. Passage of Indian Official Secret Act was something which cousin wanted, and it happened in 1904 itself. And Mahatma Gandhi founded the All India Harijan Sangh after getting out of Yarwada jail. And after the signing of Pune Pact. So this happened in 1932. Now you can easily place them in order, and the answer is 3124B. Okay. With reference to the Mauryan administration, consider the following statement. Samhat were appointed by Ashok in order to monitor his policy of Dhamma. No. There is a position which is outrightly mentioned in the NCERT that Dharma Maha Matras. Okay, not mantras, matras. Okay, they were appointed. So the first statement is wrong. Okay, and then the second statement, let's check it out. Amatya was an umbrella term which included all high-ranking officials. That's good. That's correct. Okay, let's check the options. If you just reject the first option, you can reject the A and D option, and then you look at, according to Megasthenes, the artisans were the largest of all groups. No, according to Megasthenes, peasants, farmers, they were of the largest faction. So fourth option is also wrong. Mauryan king had exempted the Lumbini village from the payment of Pali. That is actually right, because Lumbini was the birthplace of Gautam Buddha. So Ashok later on visited Lumbini and exempted Lumbini from any kind of revenue payment. Okay, so second and 3 are right. Option has to be marked B. Consider the following practices of Islam along with their meanings. Okay, Sawam, Allah, Hajj. So Sawam doesn't mean giving alms. Sawam is basically the month of Ramzan. Okay. Allah, one God, that is right. Hajj is pilgrimage to Mecca, that is also right. Okay, so 66 C. It's easy if you know this. Okay, C. Consider the following statement about Justice M.G. Ranade. Okay, Mahadev Govind Ranade. He formed the Pune Sarvajanik Sabha and was one of the founding members of Indian National Congress. Okay, this is actually right. He founded the Servants of India Society. No, this is wrong. Servants of India Society was founded by Gopal Krishna Gokhale, who was a disciple of M.G. Ranade. Understand this thing? M.G. Ranade was in a way teacher to Gopal Krishna Gokhale, and Gopal Krishna Gokhale then played the role of political guru to Mahatma Gandhi. Servants of India Society was not founded by M.G. Ranade, it was founded by Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Okay, you reject the second option itself, you get the answer. 1, 3 and 4 are right. So by elimination itself you can do this. Okay. Otherwise also the social conference movement was founded by Gopal Krishna Ranade. That's correct. He worked as the editor of Hindu Prakash, a Bombay based Anglo Marathi newspaper. That's right. Before he was appointed as a judge. He did this work of an editor before he was appointed as a judge. Okay. So that is right. Now 68. Arrange the following in correct chronological order according to the year of establishment. Now Pratna Samaj, Ved Samaj and Brahmo Samaj. Now Pratna Samaj was established in Bombay in 1867. Ved Samaj was established in Madras in 1864. And Brahmo Samaj obviously Bengal in 1828. Now you can put them in order and the option will be 3, 2, 1. Easy. Consider the following statement. Hosleshwara temple is an example of Chalukyan style of architecture. Brihadeshwara temple is an example of Dravidian style of architecture. Okay. Both of them are actually correct. Okay, Hosleshwara temple is actually Chalukya dynasty evolved temple. Brihadeshwara is the Brihadeshwara temple is the best example of Dravidian style of architecture. Both the temples are part of UNESCO World Heritage Site. No, that is wrong. Brihadeshwara temple, okay, which was made by Rajaraja Chola, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And Hosleshwara temple is going to be a World Heritage Site. It is not yet. So the third option is wrong. 1 and 2 are right. Okay, this is something a bit tricky. Always remember this. Okay, last question. Consider the following leaders and their regions of revolt in 1857. Now look, there are not even that many options, but over here they are written. So just we have to be very clear what we are finding in the answer. Many a time you don't even have to read the whole question. Kunwar Singh was working in western UP. No, Kunwar Singh was active in Bihar. He was the person who was in his late 70s, zamindar. Okay, so he was in Bihar. Not so first option you can cut it anyway. Okay, Khan Bahadur, he was working in Rohilkhand. That is true. Nana Sahib, he was living in Kanpur. That is true. Okay, Kanpur or outer Kanpur called as Bithur. Okay, Begum Hazrat Mahal was there in Lucknow. That is also correct. Kunwar Singh Bareilly, no, Kunwar Singh was in Bihar. I told you. Again, Kunwar Singh is written 2 times. Maulvi Ahmadullah was in Faizabad. That is true. What options are matching? Now best option is matching, which is C option, 2 and 3. That is Khan Bahadur in Rohilkhand and Nana Sahib in Kanpur. Okay, that's it. So it is easy. It is not that difficult. This was actually an initial test. So we are still making sure that we don't put you people in a very difficult situation. Okay. So the questions are easy. The questions are we are making sure that we cover the NCERT in fullest detail. From here onwards, in the upcoming rounds, the test from the subjective section will start. And the quality of questions will be more difficult from here, because as I told you in starting of the session itself, that from there onward the questions will be more progressive. Okay, so that will be actually all for this discussion session. I hope and expect that you must have got something fruitful from this discussion, and make sure to like the stream and subscribe to the channel of Sunya IAS. And if you like the whole session, go and join the ongoing series for the Prelims examination 2023. Thank you and have a nice day. Thank you.